Nexus Point Labs buzzed with activity. Scientists moved around, prepping equipment, and the atmosphere was charged with anticipation. The lab's advanced technology and state-of-the-art facilities showcased its cutting-edge nature. It was a place where the future was being shaped, one experiment at a time. Dr. Samuel Carter, a focused and determined scientist in his mid-50s, reviewed complex data on multiple screens. His office walls were lined with awards and articles about his groundbreaking work. His intensity and dedication were evident in every move he made. Each award and article symbolized a piece of his relentless pursuit of knowledge. John Zimmer, a younger, easygoing scientist with a sharp mind, entered the room. He cracked a joke to lighten the mood, revealing his role as Dr. Carter's confidant and voice of reason. Their camaraderie and mutual respect were clear in their interactions. "Big day, huh?" Zimmer said, grinning. "Indeed," Dr. Carter replied, not looking up from his screens. "Years of work, all leading to this moment." The lab was a hive of activity as the team prepared for the first trial of the quantum computer. Scientists checked instruments, calibrated machinery, and finalized calculations. The hum of conversation filled the air, a mix of technical jargon and excited whispers. Dr. Carter held a brief team meeting, emphasizing the historic significance of their work and motivating everyone. "Remember, what we achieve today will be remembered for generations," Dr. Carter said, his voice steady and inspiring. "We are on the brink of something extraordinary." Anticipation built as Dr. Carter and Zimmer made final adjustments to the quantum computer. The countdown clock ticked away, creating a sense of tension. The scientists' faces revealed a mix of excitement and anxiety. Each second felt like an eternity, the weight of their expectations pressing down on them. Dr. Carter initiated the activation sequence. The quantum computer hummed to life, lights flickered, and data began streaming onto the screens. The team watched in awe as the first images from parallel universes appeared. Landscapes unlike any they had ever seen, cities with architecture that defied their understanding, and civilizations that seemed both familiar and alien filled the screens. The lab erupted in cheers and applause. Dr. Carter and Zimmer shared a triumphant look. Team members celebrated, hugging and high-fiving each other. The joyous atmosphere highlighted the importance of the moment. Years of dedication and hard work had culminated in this groundbreaking achievement. As the initial excitement settled, the scientists analyzed the images, marveling at the diversity of the parallel Earths. They observed different landscapes, civilizations, and technological advancements. Dr. Carter and Zimmer discussed the implications of their discovery, their excitement evident in their animated conversation. "This changes everything, John," Dr. Carter said, his eyes gleaming with enthusiasm. "The possibilities are endless." The mood shifted as they came across a parallel Earth that was identical to theirs, but eerily devoid of people. The deserted streets and abandoned buildings created a sense of unease. Dr. Carter's excitement gave way to curiosity and concern. "Why is it empty?" Zimmer asked, his voice tinged with apprehension. Dr. Carter instructed the team to send messages to the parallel Earth. They watched the screens intently, waiting for a response. The silence was deafening as message after message went unanswered. The eerie stillness of the parallel Earth contrasted sharply with the bustling activity in the lab. Zimmer proposed various theories to explain the absence of people. The team debated the possibilities, ranging from natural disasters to advanced technology failures. Dr. Carter insisted on further investigation, driven by his insatiable curiosity and determination to understand the anomaly. "We need to know what happened there," Dr. Carter said, his eyes fixed on the screen displaying the empty Earth. "We can't stop now." The team's initial excitement turned to unease. Dr. Carter and Zimmer discussed the potential dangers of their discovery in private. Zimmer expressed concern about the unknown risks, while Dr. Carter's obsession with finding answers became more apparent. "Sam, what if we're opening a door we can't close?" Zimmer asked, his tone serious. "We have to find out, John," Dr. Carter replied, his voice unwavering. "We can't turn back now." As they continued to monitor the parallel Earth, the unease grew. The empty, identical Earth on the screen, foreshadowing the impending horror. The images of the desolate streets and lifeless buildings haunted them, a constant reminder that their discovery was not without consequences. Dr. Carter and his team stood on the brink of a new frontier, unaware of the darkness that awaited them. Nexus Point Labs had transformed from a hub of excitement to a place of mounting tension. The lifeless parallel Earth was no longer a marvel, but a growing enigma that gnawed at the minds of Dr. Samuel Carter and his team. Determined to understand, they intensified their investigation, sending a series of messages in hopes of a response. Simple greetings, detailed inquiries, and desperate pleas for communication were all met with silence. Each unanswered message added to the sense of foreboding that hung over the lab. Dr. Carter and John Zimmer spent long hours poring over the images from the parallel Earth. The scenes depicted a world eerily similar to their own, yet devoid of life. The streets, though empty, were well maintained, as if the inhabitants had just stepped out momentarily. Parks showed children's toys abandoned mid-play. Cars were parked haphazardly, and meals lay uneaten on tables. It was as if time had stopped, leaving everything in a state of suspended animation. The initial thrill of discovery had given way to a profound sense of dread. The once lively and vibrant atmosphere of the lab was now replaced by hushed conversations and anxious glances. Dr. Carter held frequent meetings to discuss their findings, but each session ended with more questions than answers. The team's imaginations ran wild with possible explanations, none of which offered comfort. Days of eerie silence were suddenly broken by a new message on their screens. "Stop contact." The stark, simple warning sent a wave of fear through the team. Dr. Carter, Zimmer, and the other scientists stared at the message, their minds racing with questions. Who could have sent the message? How could someone on the lifeless parallel Earth respond? Dr. Carter, determined to get to the bottom of this, initiated a more focused communication attempt. He sent specific queries, hoping to understand who or what was behind the message. Hours later, a reply came, identifying the senders as the remaining scientists from the parallel Earth. They revealed they were holed up at a location they referred to as Ground Zero, the origin point of a mysterious glitch that had caused the mass disappearances. Through a series of exchanges, the parallel scientists unveiled the horrifying truth. Just a week ago, their Earth's population had vanished due to an inexplicable glitch. This glitch, they explained, was a rupture in the fabric of their reality, and it seemed to have a contagious effect, spreading and causing disappearances. The scientists at Ground Zero were immune, seemingly because the start point of it was where they were, but they didn't know any more than that. Living in constant fear, cut off from the rest of the map. The warnings from the parallel scientists grew more urgent with each message. They implored Dr. Carter and his team to shut down their project immediately. The glitch, they explained, had the potential to cross over to their Earth, causing similar disappearances. The desperation in their warnings was clear. If the experiments continued, they risked unleashing the same horror on their own world. Dr. Carter was torn. His entire career and life's work had led to this groundbreaking moment, and the thought of shutting it down was unbearable. He spent long hours in his office, grappling with the decision. Zimmer and other team members frequently visited him, expressing their growing concern and urging him to consider the moral and ethical implications. Zimmer, along with other key scientists, finally approached Dr. Carter with a united plea to shut down the project. They highlighted the moral and ethical responsibility they held to prevent a potential catastrophe. The team's fear and desperation were evident as they urged Carter to prioritize human lives over scientific discovery. The weight of their words hung heavily in the air. Faced with mounting pressure from his team and the chilling evidence from the parallel Earth, Dr. Carter finally called a meeting. The room was filled with tension as the team awaited his decision. Dr. Carter stood before them, his face etched with the strain of the past few days. "I know how much this project means to all of us," he began, his voice steady but heavy with emotion. "But we cannot stop now that we've gotten so far," Dr. Carter insisted, unwilling to give up his life's work and sacrifice. "Did Edison stop when the first light bulb didn't work? Did the Wright brothers stop when their first flying machine didn't work?" Zimmer nodded, though the apprehension in his eyes remained. "I get it, Sam. But this is different. We aren't just tinkering with machines, we're delving into realities we barely understand." Dr. Carter's gaze remained fixed on the screen displaying the empty Earth. "We will go on and finish what we started. We have to know what happened there. We can't let fear dictate our actions." Dr. Samuel Carter, consumed by his life's work, could not heed the warnings from the parallel Earth. The urgency in their messages clashed with his unwavering dedication to the project. Shutting it down meant abandoning the pinnacle of his career, a reality he found unbearable. His obsession blinded him to the imminent danger, a choice that soon bore catastrophic consequences. Strange occurrences began subtly. Isolated reports of people disappearing trickled in, easily dismissed as coincidences or unrelated incidents. Yet, as days passed, the frequency of these disappearances increased alarmingly. Individuals vanished without a trace, leaving behind bewildered families and friends. First, a few isolated cases, then entire neighborhoods seemed to empty out overnight. Nexus Point Labs descended into chaos. The team, once driven by the thrill of discovery, now scrambled to understand the unfolding horror. John Zimmer, usually the bastion of calm and collectedness, was visibly shaken. He pored over the data with Dr. Carter, their minds racing to find a pattern or explanation. News outlets broadcast the growing panic, amplifying the sense of dread that gripped the world. Families were torn apart and communities plunged into despair as the disappearances continued unchecked. Zimmer's face grew pale as he absorbed the news reports. "Sam, we have to consider the possibility that our experiments are linked to this," he said, his voice trembling. Dr. Carter, though troubled, remained defiant. "We need more data. There has to be another explanation." Desperate to find a connection, Dr. Carter and Zimmer led the team in a frantic effort. They ran countless simulations, cross-checked data, and analyzed every variable they could think of. Despite their tireless work, the disappearances escalated. Each new case brought them closer to the horrifying reality they had been warned about. The correlation between their experiments and the vanishings became increasingly difficult to ignore. The atmosphere in the lab was tense, conversations were hushed, and the usual camaraderie had vanished, replaced by a palpable sense of fear. The scientists worked around the clock, driven by a mix of determination and dread. Every new disappearance report felt like a countdown to their own impending doom. The tension reached a breaking point when the CIA, led by Agent Brock Haynes, stormed into Nexus Point Labs. Haynes, a stern and imposing figure, demanded an immediate shutdown of the project. The sudden intrusion left the scientists stunned, the gravity of the situation hitting them hard. Dr. Carter confronted Agent Haynes, his voice firm. "There must be another explanation. We can't just shut down." Haynes, unfazed, presented irrefutable evidence linking Nexus Point Labs project to the mass disappearances. He revealed that 250,000 people had vanished in just 6 hours, all correlated with the timeline of their quantum computing experiments. The numbers were staggering, the implications terrifying. Dr. Carter, initially defiant, argued that the data could be coincidental or influenced by an unknown factor. "Correlation doesn't imply causation," he insisted, desperation creeping into his voice. But Haynes was prepared. He laid out detailed records showing the precise moments of disappearance aligning with their experiments. The evidence was undeniable. As Dr. Carter reviewed the data, the horrifying truth began to sink in. The disappearances were not random, they were directly linked to their work. Realizing the severity of the situation, Dr. Carter contacted his parallel counterpart for further insight. The parallel Dr. Carter confirmed their worst fears. The disappearances on the parallel Earth had started similarly, small at first, then rapidly escalating. The glitch in the fabric of their reality spread uncontrollably, eventually engulfing their entire world. The parallel Dr. Carter's voice was strained as he recounted the nightmare. "It started with a few isolated cases, just like on your side. We thought we could contain it, but it spread faster than we could react. Entire cities vanished in days. We're all that's left, trapped at ground zero." The weight of the revelation was crushing. Dr. Carter's mind raced, trying to process the implications. The glitch was not just a technical anomaly, it was a contagion, spreading like a virus, consuming everything in its path. Faced with the undeniable truth and mounting pressure from Agent Haynes, Dr. Carter reluctantly agreed to shut down the project. The decision was heavy with the weight of lost lives and the haunting possibility of further disaster. The parallel Earth's experiences served as a grim warning, highlighting the potential for the same catastrophic outcome on their Earth. Dr. Carter gathered his team, his voice somber. "We have no choice but to shut down the project. The risk is too great." Zimmer, his eyes filled with a mixture of relief and sadness, nodded. "It's the right decision, Sam. We can't let this happen here." The lab was filled with a tense silence as they prepared to dismantle their work. The hum of the quantum computer, once a symbol of their greatest achievement, now seemed ominous. The ground shook violently beneath their feet, lights flickered erratically, and the hum of the quantum computer grew into a deafening roar. Despite the chaos, Dr. Carter maintained his composure, directing his team with an urgency born of desperation. "Everyone, stay focused," Dr. Carter's voice cut through the pandemonium. "We need to stabilize the equipment and gather as much data as possible before the shutdown." Scientists scrambled, their movements frantic. Instruments were checked, calculations re-verified, and essential data was hastily backed up. John Zimmer, determined to stop the escalating crisis, rushed to the control panel to activate the kill switch. His hands moved with practiced speed, but despite his best efforts, the kill switch failed to respond. Panic spread through the lab as more people began to vanish, their disappearances marked by sudden, silent absences that left their colleagues horrified and confused. The glitch from the parallel world was merging with their reality, intensifying the sense of impending doom. "Sam, the kill switch isn't working," Zimmer shouted, his voice trembling with fear. "We're losing people faster than we can count." Dr. Carter and Zimmer exchanged a grim look, the gravity of their situation sinking in. The lab had become a scene of chaos, scientists moving with a mix of urgency and terror. Dr. Carter's voice, though steady, carried a note of desperation. "We need to evacuate, now!" Scientists, some in tears, others in shock, followed the evacuation protocol. They left behind their life's work, the fruits of years of labor, in the face of the inexplicable threat. The once bustling lab was now a scene of frantic movement and rising tension. Zimmer, clinging to a sliver of hope, attempted the kill switch again. But the control panel remained unresponsive. The realization hit hard. Their last-ditch effort to shut down the quantum computer through conventional means had failed. With every passing second, the glitch's influence grew, threatening to engulf their entire world. With no other options left, Dr. Carter made the hard decision to use the CIA's explosives to destroy the main quantum lab, the heart of the project. Agent Brock Haynes, who had stayed behind to assist, nodded in agreement, understanding the necessity of such drastic measures. The remaining scientists, led by Zimmer, began rigging the explosives around the central quantum computer. Dr. Carter oversaw the operation, his mind racing with the enormity of their situation. The explosives were carefully placed, ensuring that the blast would sever the link between their world and the parallel reality. Every movement was made with precision and urgency, the atmosphere thick with tension. The stakes were higher than they had ever been, and failure was not an option. As the final explosive was set, Dr. Carter gathered the team for a last-minute briefing. He emphasized the importance of their actions and the lives at stake. The team, though shaken, displayed a resolve born of desperation and determination. Agent Haynes activated the timer, giving them just enough time to evacuate the immediate area. "We have to move quickly," Dr. Carter instructed. "Stay calm and stick together." The group made a hasty retreat from the lab, each step heavy with the knowledge of what they were about to do. The corridors, once familiar and bustling with scientific inquiry, now seemed ominous and deserted. As they reached a safe distance, Dr. Carter turned back for one last look at the lab that had been the center of his world for so long. He gave the signal, the explosives detonated, and a powerful explosion rocked the facility. The ground trembled, and a shockwave radiated outward, felt miles away. The main quantum lab was obliterated in a fiery blast, and the link to the parallel world was severed. The roar of the explosion was followed by an eerie silence as the debris settled. The disappearances ceased almost immediately. The team, standing at a safe distance, watched the smoke and flames consume what was left of their work. Relief mingled with grief as they realized the enormity of their actions. They had saved their world, but at a tremendous cost. Dr. Carter's face was a mask of sorrow and resolve. He knew that their decision had been necessary, but the weight of it would haunt him forever. Zimmer placed a hand on his shoulder, offering silent support. They had ventured into the unknown and faced its horrors, emerging on the other side forever changed. As the last of the flames died down, the survivors stood in the stillness of the aftermath. The silence was overwhelming, broken only by the distant wail of emergency sirens. Dr. Carter gathered the remaining team members. His voice, though steady, carried the weight of their collective grief. "All research, data, and equipment related to the quantum computing project must be destroyed," he announced grimly. "We can't risk anyone reopening the portal and unleashing the glitch again." With heavy hearts, they began dismantling and incinerating their life's work, the enormity of their actions sinking in with every destroyed piece. The process of erasing their past was methodical and thorough. Files were shredded, hard drives were smashed, and the quantum computer's components were reduced to rubble. Dr. Carter supervised the destruction, his expression a mix of sorrow and resolve. John Zimmer assisted, his usual optimism replaced by a somber determination. Each action felt like erasing a part of their identity, the dreams they had once harbored turning to ashes. News of the disaster spread quickly. Governments around the world convened emergency sessions, and a global ban on similar experiments was swiftly enacted. The scientific community erupted in uproar, but the evidence of the catastrophe silenced most dissent. The world had witnessed the terrifying potential of quantum computing, and fear now overshadowed curiosity. Despite their efforts to erase the past, an uneasy fear lingered among the survivors. Dr. Carter, Zimmer, and Haynes gathered for a final debriefing. The lab, now eerily silent, felt like a tomb. They discussed the possibility that the glitch could still reach their world. The destruction of the lab and data was not a guaranteed safeguard against the unknown forces they had encountered. Dr. Carter reflected on the insignificance of their actions in the face of the vast, unknown cosmos. Even with our scientific advancements, we're still at the mercy of forces beyond our understanding, he said, his voice heavy with resignation. We've seen just how vulnerable we truly are. His words resonated with the team, highlighting their shared sense of helplessness. The survivors each coped with the aftermath in their own way. Dr. Carter was haunted by guilt and the memories of those who had vanished. He spent long hours in solitude, reflecting on the limits of human knowledge and the ethical boundaries of scientific exploration. The faces of the vanished haunted his dreams, a reminder of the consequences of pushing too far, too fast. Zimmer, though supportive of Carter, battled his own fears and uncertainties about the future. The project had been his life, and now, with its destruction, he felt adrift. He sought solace in routine tasks, trying to find a new purpose in the aftermath of their ordeal. The burden of what they had unleashed weighed heavily on him, a constant reminder of the fragility of their world. Agent Haynes, having witnessed the chaos firsthand, became an advocate for strict regulation of scientific research. The memory of the lives lost and the near catastrophe they narrowly averted drove him. He used his influence to ensure the global ban on quantum experiments was enforced, driven by a sense of duty to protect humanity from the dangers of unchecked scientific exploration. In their quiet moments, the survivors were struck by a profound sense of their own insignificance. Despite their best efforts to control and understand the universe, they remained vulnerable to forces far beyond their comprehension. The vastness of the cosmos and the unknown glitches that lurked within it served as a constant reminder of humanity's smallness.